I'm going to ask Tom Shipsey to say a few words. Tom Shipsey is in a business that I do understand. It's a cash and carry business. There's 27 of them around the country. It's a very competitive business, if I may say so, because the independent sector has been squeezed by your Tesco's and Lidl's and Aldi's and Dunn's and all of that. But Tom not only does that, he is chairman of Repak, and he also has taken personal involvement in organizations like the UN and Concern Worldwide. So I think he's in a unique position to give you his insight to kick off the day into what leadership of ESG looks like. Tom.
Good morning. Thank you, Ivan. And a big thank you to Marion Wallace, to Shona Downey and the Business Post for giving me the opportunity to be part of this critical forum today. As Ivan said, my name is Tom Shipsey. I'm a CEO, I'm a chair, I'm independent director, I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a humanitarian. In my business life and my charity life with Concern, I've seen the effects of growth, greed, and climate change over the last 40 years in some of the worst countries and most impoverished countries that you could imagine. The world as we know it is in a precarious place, and unfortunately I've come to the conclusion that our governments, our business leaders, and society as a whole is failing to sustain ourselves, our children, and the planet. So summits like the one today are vital in challenging us and inspiring us to address how we protect the earth for future generations. Sustainability, as defined by the UN, is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. World Overshoot Day is the day when, if the world acted like one country, we would run out of the renewable resources for that year. In Ireland's case, that's the 21st of April every year. So to put that in context, we would need 3 Earths to sustain us if the world acted like Ireland does. Recently, I attended a workshop on sustainability, a week-long course in the University of Cambridge. And Cambridge adopts an interesting way of learning. They do the U-curve of learning. So we spent the first 2 days of the U going down the very dark side of what we've done to the world. And then the final days were listening to speakers who challenged us and inspired us to come up with the other side, where the world has a chance for its future. Marion's offered me a few minutes to bring you down that curve. So it's early in the morning, but to bring you down the dark curve, to show you why we are here, the precarious health of our planet today, and the consequences of our actions and inactions. Hopefully, as you listen to the stories of the expert speakers as the day progresses on ESG, sustainability, and hear practical steps that you can take, you will leave the summit better informed and inspired by what you can do with your lives and your communities. So to put ESG in context, we need to look at the planet today and why ESG matters. Why are we here this morning? So before we debate, and there will be a lot of debate around the E, the S, and the G, we need to have an understanding of what sustainability is and how we are faring. I think a great place to start is looking at the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN, especially from the point of view of the E and the S. Agreed by the UN in 2015, they were based on goals of no hunger, no poverty, good health, clean water, quality education, gender equality, sustainable communities, and climate action, to name just a few. I think it's fair to say that some 7 years later, we are failing miserably. Today, 147 million children are not in education, with the vast majority of these being girls. 2 billion people are living in conflict-afflicted countries. That's a quarter of the world's population. Refugee numbers are now at the highest level since 1946 at the end of World War II. 6.5 million were added alone this year from Ukraine. Poverty has risen for the first time in 2 decades. A third of the women of the world fear walking alone at night. According to UN estimates, 25% of girls and women over the age of 15 have experienced some form of intimate violence. And at the current rate of change, it will take over 40 years for the full gender equality and an awful lot longer for diversity equality. In my industry, it is estimated that upwards of 10% of all food is lost between harvest and consumer shelves, and a further 12% is wasted by us as consumers. 10% of all the CO2 emissions are attributed to food waste alone. 10 million hectares of land, of forests, are taken up by agriculture every year. That's larger than the size of Ireland every year. Land degradation and soil erosion have resulted in reduced productivity by over 23% in the last 20 years. And we're now using more fertilizers and more chemicals for lower yields. Climate change and conflict are reported by the UN as the biggest causes of mortality today in developing countries. Before the war in Ukraine, together Ukraine and Russia supplied 30% of the world's wheat, 20% of its maize, and over 70% of sunflower seeds. Now these are not reaching the markets, particularly in Africa, and even if they are doing so, the prices have gone up by over 100%. 700 million people are in extreme hunger. That's 1 in 10 of the population. And 150 million children are suffering from stunting and consequently will have a poorer life and shorter life expectancy. Famine is about to be declared in the Horn of Africa, with the worst drought in 4 years. 70% of Somalia is now undernourished. There are over 36 million people in the region, and lack of food has led to a loss in education, children sold into child marriages, and now an estimated 1 person is dying in the region every minute. So to put that in context, if you take the room as we have it today, and if we were Somalia, we would all be dead by lunchtime. NASA, which is really scary to say, NASA says that the drought now in Somalia is caused by La Nina weather patterns in the Pacific Ocean. So even though collectively the Horn of Africa produces less than 0.1% of all the total world CO2 emissions, they are paying the highest price for our strive for growth. And to put some of that into a business perspective, COVID-19 has cost us 15 million lives. The world population is going to increase in the next 25 years from 8 billion to 10 billion. 70% of the world's population will live in cities. And what's really scary is the demands that will increase. So the world demand on energy will increase by 50% over the next 25 years. And still 75% of that will still be fossil fuels. The world demand for food will increase by 50%. The world demand for water will increase by 50%. The world demand for transport will increase by 40%. And biodiversity is decreasing by 15% minimum in that period of time. Air pollution will become the top environmental cause of premature death. So does ESG matter? Absolutely. And there's never been a good time to address ESG. We always have excuses. Today it's inflation, energy price hikes, the war in Ukraine. Lots of reasons to say, let's wait, now is not the time. But in the meantime, the world continues to heat up, the oceans are rising, and because of our excessive drive for growth, the planet is suffering. We know the science, we have in some cases the solutions. Now we as business leaders, as developed countries and as human beings, must act and act immediately on ESG. I'm here today because I believe we can do so. We are late, but it's never too late to change. Finally, I'd say a group of retirees meet in a Dublin pub to discuss the world's problems. One of them shocks his friends by announcing, "I'm an optimist." His friends say, "But then why do you always look so worried?" His answer is, "You think it's easy being an optimist?" Thank you.